welcome to episode 30 of the Brew from the Bothy podcast. I hope you're well. I'm weaving to begin with. I'll be weaving at the end as well. My name is Fay and I am a crochet and knitwear designer currently residing in Cheshire, right in the middle of England, about as far from the sea as you can get, unfortunately. And this is my little podcast that I bring out every 2 weeks for about half an hour. Might be a little longer today because I have so many little things to update you about and tell you about. I don't have any big projects that I've finished or that I've really started, but it's just been really busy, but with like little bitty things. So I think that might have to be the name of the podcast, is Little Bitty Things. Let me start off with what I am wearing. This is the Omni shawl that I finished off. This is in a 4-ply yarn with a very, very subtle bit of hand dyeing on it. It has little bluey and rusty blips on it. And before I take it off and show you some of the features of it, the yarn is by the Camel's Yarn, and it's inspired by Cornish scenery. The colourway is called Strandline, and although I don't think this colourway is available anymore, there are very similar ones available on their website. And the drape, well, that is because it is 50% baby alpaca, 25% linen and 25% silk. And it's all non-superwash, and it's coming in at a standard 400 metres per 100 grams, 437 yards. Love this. This is the only skein of the Camel's Yarn that I have, and I will be getting more because I thoroughly enjoyed working with this yarn. I love that it has got little floofy bits from the linen. There were lovely little straggles of linen that I enjoyed poking out when I was working with it, but also it's got really good drape on it. I'm loving that. And in this shawl, because of the silk and because of the drape, I have a little trick to show you for keeping it on so that it doesn't slip. I'm actually going to write this up in a blog post because this would work for a knitted shawl as well as a crocheted shawl. But I'll write it in a blog post, and I'll pop it in a link below the what I'm wearing section. And all I've done is added a little tab, basically. I'll give you all the details of how I've done it, but this little tab has got a bit of positive ease on it, and all it means is that rather than just having a shawl that wants to keep on slipping off my neck, you just feed the thin end through the tab. It creates that circle, and it just creates a little bit of friction and will keep the shawl around your neck. Now, it doesn't matter, you could add this to a shawl that you've finished years ago if you wanted, and maybe you've stopped wearing it because it keeps on slipping off, and that's very annoying. Because this goes onto the wrong side of the fabric for whichever way you would wear your shawl, it could be in any colour of yarn, and if you sew it well, then you don't see it on the right side of your fabric. But this really helps to keep your shawl around your neck, not falling off and not losing it as well, which is another factor. And if you want to be really, really secure, let me just put this on properly so it looks nice again. If you want to be really secure, then the other thing you can do is tie a little knot in your shawl end, which I quite like to do anyway because I like the look of it. It just gives it a little something, but there's no way that is coming through my tab anyway. So even if, I don't know, I did test this by doing a 5-minute exercise routine to see how long it would stay on for. It will not stay on for an exercise routine. I'm never going to show you that video, but had I had the knot in it, it definitely wouldn't have fallen off. It just would drape down to like where the knot is. So great little addition to your shawl, crocheted or knitted, doesn't matter, for keeping them on. And I'll pop it all in a quick blog and tell you how you can do it too, because it might make the difference between you not wearing your beautiful handmade shawls and you wearing your handmade shawls, because you don't have to keep on faffing with them. Right, let's make sure I've got this and it looks really guys. So this is my Omni shawl. I will link to it down below. But I would say, this is bad, but don't buy it yet if you're looking at it. You will get updated anyway if you have bought this shawl previously, but I'm just right in the middle of giving it an absolute glow up. I've just charted it, I've added in loads of supporting images, I've kind of rejigged how I've written it a little bit, so it's a much better pattern now, but it needs to go through my tech editor Deb. And when I head to Edinburgh this weekend, I am going to the beach at Dunbar and I'm going to take new photos of it. So if you really want to, you can obviously buy it now, but I would say hold off. Give me probably a month before I've got it through with Deb and done all the final bits, and then I'll put a discount on it when I show you this, probably in a month's time. So if you want Omni, just hold off a minute and I'll let you know when you can get it discounted and when it's all beautiful and at the level that I think my patterns should be at now, because I've learned a lot in 10 years. Right, that was a lot. See, I've told you we've got a lot of little things to get through, a lot to tell you about. So that is what I'm wearing. Now, rather than, this is kind of an off my hook, but it's off my hook because I'm going to frog it, and my intention with the podcast is always to be really open and honest about patterns, things that I've enjoyed working on, things that aren't grabbing me anymore, not keeping my attention, and a recent one that I really enjoyed making, but I have just never got to the point of finishing it, and that is absolutely no shade on this pattern. I learned so much from doing this sock pattern, but I know that I'm never going to finish it. And one of the reasons for that is because I am right in the middle of doing a design for another magazine, and it's a pair of crocheted socks, and I did a lot of work on it last week and last weekend, and I feel like I have cracked the code for crochet socks. I've got a really good fit on them. I love how the heel has worked out, which is always my problem area. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I did not love how this heel worked out. It has not done what I think a heel should do, or what I need a heel to do, because I've got quite a high instep, so I need socks to be really specific for me to want to wear them. And so I could pretend that I'm going to make another one of these. I love the colour combination, I love the stitch combination, but actually, let's just start the process now and then I really will frog them. I am going to frog these back today, basically, because I know that I'm not going to make the second one, because the work that I've done on my own sock designs fit me better and I'm much happier with them. So I'm not going to put hours into this when I could actually just work up another sock design for myself, having cracked what I think the major dysfunctional elements are with a lot of crochet socks. I've said it before, that sounds really big-headed, but I know the construction of socks really well, and I've done a lot of work towards that, and I really want to apply that to a crocheted sock. So this will be properly frogged, and the effort that I would have been putting into this, I'm going to put into my own design. So frogged and kind of off my hook. However, also off my hook, and as a direct result of the things I learned within that sock pattern, was how to do a really neat round change in crochet. So Jeanette at Air Crochet has a technique that I hadn't used before and that I liked, but I also then developed it for a bit of crochet that I also do. So I always use starting stitches. I never use starting chains or turning chains within my patterns, because I think there's a better way. And I said a few weeks back that I wanted to come up with a solution for getting rid of this step that you get when you go from your foundation chain last stitch to first stitch. It gets worse as you get that step, that jog gets worse as you go up through the higher stitches. So that's double crochet, single crochet US, half treble, half double US, and then when you take it into a treble crochet UK, double crochet US, that step is really pronounced. And yes, you can sew it in to neaten it up, but that doesn't do anything to deal with this jog that is occurring here in every single round, because when you marry up the round, you still end up with this jog that happens, and you can neaten it off a little bit. And one of the techniques that I use for that is a starting crochet stitch without any slip stitch join into the next round. I just go back in with a starting stitch into the first stitch of the round. And to be honest, if you look at this on a half treble, it creates a pretty neat result, but it can be better. So once again, I've created a blog post for this, and there's a video for how you can very simply get rid of this jog at the beginning of the foundation chain, but the same system can then be used for all of your subsequent rounds afterwards. There's an extra step that is needed when you do the colour change, and I haven't yet got to record that video, but it's really simple. So if you look at the videos or the photos that I have already set up in the blog posts, the only difference is that you then do a chain in the new colour when you've got to the end of all of the other steps. It will make sense if you go and look at the step-by-step photo tutorial, but it's super simple to do and it absolutely makes a difference. I knew there must be a really good technique for this, and you can go from that horrible jog to really beautiful round joined rounds, and look at the difference. You can get rid of this jog that comes down here as well. So I'll pop links in, but that is as a direct result of working on Jeanette's sock. So I kind of feel like I needed to go through that with the sock to be able to learn this technique and to develop it and adapt it for my own patterns. But it was really helpful to come across her way of doing things and be able to change them a little for the way that I do things and the way that I start rounds in my patterns. So absolute game changer though. I will never start a foundation chain the old traditional way ever again. I will just move to this new technique, and the same with round joins and the same with colour joins. And you do not do it on the final yarn round hook of the final stitch. You actually go into the next stitch to be able to start this technique. There's no point in me explaining it further than what I've said, because it's too difficult to get your head around. Go and have a look at the links. But absolute game changer for neatening up your crochet work. That's it for double crochet and single crochet US. Make sure I've got the right one. Yep. That's it for half treble, half double. And again, let's make sure I've got the right one. That's how it looks for treble, double crochet. That's the neatest round join, colour join I've ever managed to get in what must be now 12 years of experience, and also really quite a vertical joining round as well, which is quite hard to achieve. So needless to say, this was my Easter weekend, doing lots and lots of little swatches, getting ready for videos to make sure that I could properly convey this technique. And I am so pleased that I took the effort to do that, and I am so pleased that I've developed that technique to a place where I'm really happy and can share it with you. It's game changer. Give it a go. It is so simple. I'll shut up about it now, but please go and look at it, because if you want to finesse your crochet, honestly, I think this is one of the best ways to do it. And I'm going to have to add it into I have a blog post called 7 ways to finesse your crochet. It's going to have to now be 8 ways to finesse your crochet, because this has to go in there. So, done all of that. Let's scooch over to on my needles. I showed you a yarn that I got back from Mitred, which is called Katia Concept Silky Lace, and I was wanting to test this out as a sock yarn lace. Now it's 80% merino, which is superwash, and 20% silk, and 50 grams is 260 meters, which is 284 yards, which puts it into like a heavy lace weight category, which is what I've been looking for walking trainer socks. I think I showed you this before, but the yarn is a little bit odd. It's one strand. It does have a twist on it, but it's not a very heavy twist that's on it. So it's kind of like a roving yarn, but it's still got decent tensile strength. Like, I'm very happy to knit with it and make socks out of it, because I'm hoping that the 20% silk will be enough that it will give them some wearability. So, and durability. I have finished one little sock already, and I tried it on the other day. And again, another sock code cracking moment. I think these teeny weeny little stitches with my 2mm needle, with the floofiness of this yarn, but still with the structure of the silk, I think I have found a good sock yarn that my little princess feet can deal with in my walking trainers. I need to give them a bigger go. So I'm kind of more than halfway through the second one, and I'm back in training for us doing the second half of the West Highland Way probably at the end of May. So I'm kind of doing treadmill most days at a pace to get my exercise regime back up. So I will test these on the treadmill, and I'll feed back and let you know, because I don't want to just take them straight out onto the hills. You know, some days we'll be doing 15 miles and you don't do 15 miles in socks that make your feet hurt. That's what I've learned. So I'm holding out high hopes that these are going to work, and I will not feel a single stitch. Now, this yarn is really interesting. I'm going to try and show you what I mean if I can. When you wrap it, this might be very difficult to get across. It almost flattens out because it doesn't have a high twist on it. It almost flattens out like a ribbon yarn. So when you hold it in your hand, it's circular, and then when you pop it on your needle and put your needle through, it flattens out like a ribbon yarn and then knits through. But then when you let go of it and take the tension off of it, it floofs back up. Now, that can mean that it's a little bit more splitty and more difficult to get your needles through sometimes, but honestly, it's so lovely and soft that I don't think that's an issue. I would take that for the softness that this yarn has given me in the finished socks. I've popped a link to Katya's own website with all of the colours of this. I had a good scooch around today, the internet, to see if I could find a decent UK supplier for this specific yarn, and I can't. But you can buy globally from Katya from their own website, so I might just do that. Yeah, these will be finished next time, so I won't talk to you about them again until I have properly tested them out and got an idea of what the durability of them will be like, and you know, if I can do 10 to 15 miles in them without them hurting. But I have high hopes that I have found a yarn that is a heavy lace weight that will work for me for walking socks, because I want to do more and more walking. So also, I love a trainer sock, and if I can just fill up my sock wardrobe with loads of homemade trainer socks, then I will happily do that too. The other thing that's kind of on my needles, I've got lots of stuff that's kind of in limbo, not in limbo, kind of almost a project, not a project. I found the yarn that I want to make my twist cardigan in. I will pop a picture up here. I showed it to you last time. I am so excited about the colour combination because I had most of the yarn in my stash already. I had to buy 2 more skeins, and here's what I'm going to make it in. Oh, look at that teal. Oh my word, I love it. So this is Knit by Numbers 4-ply by John Urban Textiles. And these 3 little skeins are about 4 or 5 years old. The 2 darker ones, which are these 2, were a Mill Special. Does it say what year? Oh, 2021 Mill Special. So actually almost 5 years old. Usually with the Knit by Numbers range, this would be the darkest one, and then the shades come down from there very subtly as they blend more white into the mix, more white fibre. But for the Mill Special back in 2021, what they actually did was blended darker yarns up and took the palette from this being the darkest and took a darker palette up by 2. So I bought these 3 altogether as part of the Mill Special, and they've patiently sat in my stash for quite some time, obviously 5 years, and I thought that twist cardigan is actual perfection for these colours. So I'm not going to do all of the different colours that are in the designer's twist. I'm actually just going to stick to 4 colours. So I had some of the next one down, which is here. I had 2 nuggets of that which I wanted to use up, and then I bought 2 more skeins of it just in case I will need it, because it will be the colour at the top and the colour at the bottom, so I will need more of this colour than I will of these 3. But I'm really pleased that these are finally going to be used, that I've got a purpose for them. I mean, it was less pleasing that I had to go and buy 2 more skeins to finish like what will be the cardigan, but that, like, this is such a wearable colour palette for me. This is going to go with all my navy summer dresses when I need something just to put over my shoulders. This is going to go with like my jeans and trainers. It's going to do everything, and it goes with my eyes. So like, I'm well excited about this cardigan now. Whereas previously I was like, oh, what am I going to do the stripes in? I don't want to be, not like really bold, but I just don't do big in your face colours like that usually. It's not my thing. This makes me so happy that I'm going to have this really subtle gradient cardigan that I will wear and wear and wear, I'm sure of it. So I have swatched for that, like a good little person. Annoyingly though, my swatch, I'm out by stitches, so it needs 23 stitches over 10 centimetres, and I have got 26. But I really like the fabric that I've got. This was done with a 3.75mm needle. If I go up more to a 4, I'm going to get a very open fabric that I'm not sure I want, even though this is 50% merino, 50% Blueface Leicester, so it's going to fill a little bit, but I like this fabric. So instead of re-swatching with a larger needle, I'm just going to go up a size in the pattern. So I think I was going to knit the 110 centimetre bust version, and I think I'm now just going to knit the 115 instead, and that will do basically. That will take care of the extra stitches that I've got on what would be a smaller fabric, but I really like this fabric that I've made, so I'm going to go with that instead. I might even get that cast on this evening, and hopefully I'll have some progress to show you in 2 weeks' time. The other thing that I want to show you, and this is going into kind of off my needles, because my swatch is off my needles. I said last time round that I really want to spend some of my time off over Easter trying out different purling techniques. And I found 3 different techniques that I wanted to try. So I tried Norwegian purl, Portuguese purl, and I also tried backwards knitting or mirror knitting, where you don't turn your work, you literally are just knitting backwards rather than purling. That was a lot of fun. Now I've produced a playlist which I've linked down below. It's a playlist in YouTube. I found what I thought were 3 decent videos for those 3 techniques. They're the ones I worked from. So if you wanted to have a go at a different purling technique, then have a look at them. I've also opened it as a collaborative playlist, so if you have got another technique that you think people should be aware of and you want me to try, you can add it into that playlist as well, and then hopefully we can spread a bit more knowledge and inspiration about trying different purling techniques. So the reason I'm doing this is because my purling is really slow and it puts me off doing a lot of projects because I just don't enjoy it. So I wanted to find maybe a different technique that I would enjoy more and that would make me speedier, because I love making things and I want to make all the things, and for me to make all the things I need to be faster at purling. So that has meant I have done loads of swatches to test out different purling techniques. But because my brain is the way that my brain is, I couldn't find a pattern for a mitred square knitted pattern that was in stockinette stitch. They were all garter, and I was like, but why has nobody invented a mitred square for stockinette stitch? I just couldn't get my head around it, and then my brain wouldn't stop like scratching at it. I had a little itch and I just had to keep on going. So I also spent my Easter weekend devising a pattern for mitred stocking stitch squares because I wasn't busy enough. So I did that, worked out the code for that, cracked the formula for that, and then I used these different squares to, one, give me different sample sizes for the mitred square, but also for testing the different purling techniques. And what I discovered really quickly was Norwegian purl is not for me because you're tensioning with your left hand, and I knit and crochet with my right hand and a tension in my right hand, so I probably crochet differently from most of you. And what that means is that my right hand, the muscle memory is there for me to do all of that work with my right hand. So if I just quickly show you, literally I am tensioning through my right hand and I crochet like I'm a flicker knitter. I crocheted first. I know you're probably looking at this going, well, that's because you knitted first. I didn't. I crocheted first. This is just what is really comfortable to me. So with the Norwegian purl, I would have to change that out and tension for my left hand, and it just doesn't work. I didn't enjoy it. I don't like it. For the same purpose, I don't do continental knitting. I'm far faster as a flicker knitter. My knit stitches are really speedy. So that was straight out the window for me. And it also felt like still an awful lot of steps to get through to be able to make a purl. It was like a dance. I didn't enjoy that. So then I tried knitting backwards, and I really liked that, but it still felt like there was an extra step, and I felt like it would be easy to keep one of the stitches on the needle and not take it off the needle. But I could see times where that methodology would be really helpful. So I'm keeping that in my little arsenal of purling stitches that I might use. And the one that I absolutely loved was Portuguese purling. I have a Portuguese pen, so I tried it with that to begin with. But actually I then just tested it with yarn around my neck, which was perfectly fine. So the way that I did it, because you actually use your other hand, I was using my left thumb as the flicker for the purl stitch, so I found it easier to have the working yarn coming off my right and pass it over to my left, and that then keeps the tension on, so it makes it really easy to just like ping it over with your thumb. That felt like such a small amount of movements to get a purl stitch. You're literally poking your needle, your right needle purlwise from one, and you just flick your thumb over because you've got so much built up tension in this. You don't have to kind of manipulate it and make a big song and dance about it. It literally flicks and then you kind of scoop it through and that's it done. So it's a very minimal amount of steps to get a purl stitch. Sorry, we have cat invasion. I really enjoyed that technique a lot, and whilst I was getting a little bit of rowing out with the Mitred square swatches, I actually did my twist cardigan swatch with it using the Portuguese pearl, and I got no rowing out with that, which is unusual for me. It's fairly standard that I get rowing out with my pearls, so that was an upside that I really actually wasn't expecting. So it's the Portuguese pearls actually sorted another issue that I wasn't expecting to sort, basically. And if you don't know what rowing out is, I will try and find you a decent explanation, better than the one that I can give you. And I don't think this is going to come across on screen, but maybe across this top you can see it looks like I got a linear bit on every column of stitches. That's rowing out. I don't know why it specifically happens with me, but Portuguese purling has stopped that from occurring. It doesn't happen every single time for me. I think it's a combination of the purl stitch that I use and also the yarn that I'm using, but I know that I've had it with knit by numbers before, so I'll find some decent information on rowing out and I'll pop that into the show notes as well. Right, Kitten Catton, can you come to my lap? I'm fairly sure you can hear his purrs down the microphone. Hopefully you don't mind that. He's an old boy, so when he wants cuddles, he gets all the cuddles he wants. The yarn that I was using for the Mitred square swatches is new yarn. It's incoming. Let me just show you. I've shown you this before because I've done a design in it. Can you not nudge the camera? Thank you. It's Morris DK by West Yorkshire Spinners. I really like this yarn a lot, and the price point is good. It's usually about £6 to £6.50 for 50 grams. Over the Easter weekend, I went into my local yarn shop, and they have this in, and they're going to keep it in. So I wanted to put some money their way, and I got 3 colours. So the kind of putty colour is called linseed, and the brighter orangey red is rhubarb, and this kind of corally brown one is chrysanthemum. But the whole colours that they've got are really beautiful, and as you would expect from a yarn colour palette that is inspired by William Morris, they all go really well together. So given that I was trying to work up a Mitred square pattern, and I'm going to make hundreds of these out of loads and loads of scrap yarn, I thought it would also be really helpful to have some that bring a bit of colour cohesion, where I might just have more of specific colours. And it's never a hardship to buy this yarn and have it in my stash anyway. And I've got lots of little scrappy bits from the Inside Crochet project that I did, the Metro cowl, so these will be added to it as well. It's going to take me a little while to write this pattern up because I still need to work out what the edging is going to be, but this is a very direct insight into my brain that I'm so inquisitive about stuff that I have to like keep on pecking away at it until I've got an answer. And you know, the Mitred squares are a perfect example of that, where I could have just done a simple square just to test out the purling, but I was like, there needs to be a purpose behind it at the end of it, and it can't just be random little squares that I'll never use. So instead I had to create a whole new pattern. C'est la vie. Better to be inquisitive than to have no curiosity about the world and the work that you do, I think. I think that's most of the things, other than I'm heading off on Thursday up to Edinburgh. My friends Rosina and Michelle, that's Rosina from Zanes and Rogers and Michelle who's Dora Does, we are going to the Woolly Good Gathering Yarn Festival in Edinburgh for 2 days. It's going to be on the Friday and Saturday. There are limited tickets still available, so if you're in the vicinity and you fancy going, I would jump on tickets straight away, because I don't really think they've got tickets that are going to be available on the door. So I'm going to be there, and one of the things that I got as tickets for while we were there is there's going to be a talk by somebody called Eleanor Gilchrist. She's doing a PhD on the history of crochet, and the talk that she is giving is the history of crochet in 100 objects. So given that the three of us are crochet designers, we're all going to go and listen to this talk. I'm really excited about it, to see some of the examples that she's going to be able to show us objects of. I suspect most of them will be photos, but she might have some physical examples as well. So whilst I won't be able to record that and take you with me, I've done some digging around the internet, and I have found you an article that she wrote for Epoch publication, and she also did a podcast for this, an episode for the So What podcast. And so I've popped links in for that for Apple and for Spotify, and I've also given you her Instagram account, so that if you're interested in her PhD and listening to that podcast, which actually it was really fascinating, then I would say give it a listen, because it's just interesting to hear about the history of crochet and the timeline that it's had or not had. So I will take photos if I can take photos, and I will be popping it all up, probably on Instagram, but also here on YouTube, so I can keep you with me and show you Edinburgh and the Really Good Gathering. And then I will get back on the Sunday night, and then the following Friday I'm through to Wales, because it's Wonderwool Wales, and I'm working on the John Arbon stand. So come and see me and say hello there if you're about, and I will happily chat crochet, knitting and all things woolly with you, whilst obviously also doing work. But I'll be straight over there, so I don't know how much time I've got for making loads of things, but it might be the next time you get quite a lot of chat about wool shows and different bits and pieces. We'll see. I do always try and find quite a lot of time for crochet and knitting. I think that's everything. I think we're done. Thank you for coming and spending some time with me. Thank you for all the comments that you send, and for the likes that you give me and what I'm doing here. It's an absolute pleasure to know that you're sat across from me watching, having a brew. And I got lovely comments back from a couple of people last time saying, I thought I would just crochet, but then you give over so much information that I sit there with a pen and paper, and that makes me really happy, because in essence what I'm doing is showing you what I make, and sometimes from my perspective that can feel quite self-absorbed and selfish. So to know that I'm also imparting lots of good information that hopefully you want to take down and you want to go and forage for yourself, that's really good, because that's what I'm trying for with the podcast, is to show you what I'm doing in a non-self-absorbed way, but to actually just share knowledge and share my very inquisitive nature with you, because I love to go down a little rabbit hole and find out information that maybe other people don't have the time for. I will always try and make the time for that. Right, until next time, when I will have been in Edinburgh and Wales. I just need to get Northern Ireland in there, and I will have done all of the nations. Thank you. I am waving. Maybe I'll see you in Edinburgh. Maybe I'll see you in Wales. Bye bye.